Ladies and gentlemen, we are live on the YouTube channel. Will the officer please open the courtroom for the afternoon session?
State of Michigan 36th District Court is now in session. The Honorable Judge Mary Martin Clark is presiding. While court is in session, there's no eating, drinking, smoking, or driving. Please adhere to proper courtroom decorum at all times. Good afternoon, Your Honor.
Thank you. Good afternoon. The court is calling U-572-86520. Al-Jafari, AL-JAAFARI, Abdul-Fattah, FATTA, and the charge is offering to engage the services of another for an act of prostitution. Mr. Al-Jafari has an interpreter. He is an Arabic-speaking defendant. I know he is retained by, he does have retained counsel as well as his interpreter, which the court swore in earlier. I'm going to have her say her name for the record. Ma'am, please, your name.
Serene Kishmish, Your Honor, Arabic interpreter.
Thank you, Ms. Kishmish. And the court reminds you that you were previously sworn in. From this point forward, I am going to ask that you interpret what I am saying for Mr. Al-Jafari. Who is representing Mr. Jafari?
من يمثل السيد الجعفري?
Ali Chiedo, P77614 on behalf of Mr. Al-Jafari.
Thank you, Mr. Cheeto. Is Mr. Al-Jafari in the virtual courtroom?
هل السيد الجعفري موجود في غرفة المحكمة الافتراضية؟
Yes, he's present in my office, Your Honor, via Zoom.
All right,
هو حاضر
Mr.
في مكتبي
Jafari,
خلال الزوم.
kindly say your name, sir, for the record.
أعطينا اسمك الكامل للسجل. عبد الفتاح الجعفري.
Thank you. How do you wish to proceed, Mr. Cheeto?
Your Honor, for arraignment purposes, Mr. Al-Jafari is waiving his formal reading and standing mute.
أولاً السيد الجعفري يتخلى عن حقه في الرد وسيبقى صامتاً.
The court will enter a not guilty plea for Mr. Al-Jafari. And sir, are you asking for a pretrial date?
المحكمة ستقبل طلبك بأنك غير مذنب مبدئياً. سيدي، هل أنك تطلب موعد محاكمة أو محاكمة مبدئية؟
Yes.
Thank you. All right. And Mr. Cheeto, it is my understanding that earlier the court did allow you into a private breakout room with your client, Mr. Al-Jafari, and the interpreter.
كما فهم السيد جياتو أنه المحكمة قبل قليل سمحت لك للدخول في غرفة خاصة مع موكلك ومترجم.
And while in that room, sir, you did give Mr. Al-Jafari, you did arraign him with his rights and the maximum penalty for this offense, correct?
وخلال هذا الوقت أعلمت السيد الجعفري بحقوقه وأيضا أقصى العقوبة، تمام؟
Yes, Your Honor.
And the interpreter facilitated that for you, is that right?
والمترجمة ترجمت هذا الكلام، صحيح؟
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, Madam Interpreter, I do need you to also interpret the response of the attorney.
Yes, Your Honor, thank you. نعم.
Thank you. And Madam Clerk, can you give me the pre-trial date for Mr. Al-Jafari?
June 11th, Your Honor, at 9 o'clock.
Again, please.
June 11th at 9 o'clock.
June 11, 2021 is the date for your pretrial, Mr. Al-Jafari, and that will be at 9 o'clock.
سيد الجعفري، موعد المحاكمة القادم لك هو رح يكون شهر 6 يوم 11/2021 على الساعة 9 صباحا.
All right, sir. The court will give you a personal bond, which means you do not have to pay any money. but you must return on June 11 at 9 a.m.
ستخرجك المحكمة بضمان شخصي، وهذا معناه أنك لن تدفع أي مبلغ، لكنك لابد أن تعود إلى المحكمة في 11/6 صباحا.
Mr. Al-Jafari, this charge, the original charge offering to engage, does carry mandatory 45 days in jail.
هذا الحكم المبدئي أنه يتضمن أو يشمل أيضا 45 يوم في الحبس.
All right, sir. So the court just wanted to make you aware of that.
المحكمة
Your pretrial will be by Zoom connection. So that means the same way you connected today, you will connect on June 11. Are there any questions?
المحكمة القادمة سوف تكون على الزوم أيضا، ومثل ما عملت اليوم. هل هناك أي سؤال؟
No, لا, thank you.
No, thank you.
All right then, gentlemen, you may disconnect. Mr. Cheeto, as well as Mr. Al-Jafari and Ms. Kishmish, you may disconnect from the hearing. And
Thank you, Your Honor. Have a great day.
Thank you so much. The court is calling.
Thank you, Your Honor.
You're welcome. Mr. Tirmizi, case number U587-62220. Saeed Kashif Tirmizi, Tirmizi. And the charge is soliciting, aiding and abetting another for an act of prostitution. If Mr. Tirmizi is in the courtroom, please say your name for the record.
Said Tirmizi.
Thank you. And who's representing Mr. Tirmizi?
Dan Calabit, appearing on behalf of Saeed Tirmizi.
Mr. Calabit, how do you wish to proceed?
My client waives a formal reading of the complaint and he stands mute to the charges and requesting a pretrial date.
Thank you. Mr. Tirmizi, the court is entering a not guilty plea for you. Your pretrial date, sir, is June 11, 2021 at 9 a.m. It will be a Zoom connection. So the same way that you connected today, you will connect on June 11, same number, same information. Sir, the court is also giving you a personal bond. It means you will not have to pay any money, but you must return on June 11 for your pretrial. And Mr. Tirmizi, the court is advising you this matter also carries a mandatory 45-day jail term as originally written. So the original charge would carry a mandatory jail term. I'm just letting you know that. I think you've been given another offer, but you need to discuss that with your attorney. Any questions? Mr. Tirmizi?
Your Honor.
Mr.
No.
Calvet? All right, gentlemen, you may disconnect from the hearing. We'll see you on June 11.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.
The
Welcome.
court is calling Michael Tew, and the last name is spelled T-E-W, U587-61820, Michael Albert Tew. The charge is indecent and obscene conduct. Is Mr. Tew in the virtual courtroom? If so, please say your name for the record.
I'm Michael Albert Tew.
Thank you, Mr. Tew. Who's representing Mr. Tew?
Good afternoon, Your Honor. Christopher Brown, P71665, on behalf of Mr. Tew. I will waive the reading of the complaint and stand my client mute for purposes of arraignment.
Thank you. It is so ordered. How do you want to proceed today with Mr. Tew, Mr. Brown?
Your Honor, it's my understanding the prosecution's offered an amended charge of disorderly conduct. My client wishes to avail himself of that plea offer and tender a guilty plea.
Thank you. Mr. Tew, you have heard the representation of your lawyer. Sir, are you in agreement with that representation?
I am.
And Mr. Tew, you understand your right to a trial, sir?
I do.
Mr. Tew, if you were to have that trial, normally it would take place in person inside the 36th District Court. but because of the pandemic, the courthouse has been closed to the public. And so it is my understanding that you have agreed to participate on the Zoom technology. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Mr. Tu, did you have an opportunity to speak to your attorney about all of your rights?
Yes, I did.
Sir, did anyone threaten you, force you, or promise you anything in exchange for your plea?
No,
Are you pleading guilty of your own free will?
I am.
Are you pleading guilty because you are actually guilty?
Yes,
And sir, do you understand that by pleading guilty, you will be waiving your right to a trial?
yes, I understand.
And sir, knowing that you're waiving your right to a trial, it's my understanding you wish to go forward with the plea today. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Mr. Tu, please raise your right hand and be sworn. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth to the best of your knowledge and belief?
I do.
Sir, you may lower your hand. And Mr. Tu, on the date, the time, and the location indicated in the ticket ending in 61820 in the city of Detroit, sir, what were you doing that was indecent and obscene?
I engaged in sexual activity in a park within public view.
All right, sir. Were you approached by a police officer?
Not directly.
Okay, so was the person an undercover officer or an officer?
Undercover
Approach.
officer. An undercover officer.
Okay, so you didn't actually get to the activity. You were trying to get to the activity. Is that right? Or?
That is correct.
All right, sir. Counsel, Mr. Brown, are you satisfied?
Defense is satisfied, Your Honor.
The court will accept the guilty plea being satisfied with the factual basis. Mr. Tu, the court will accept the recommendation to amend the charge to disorderly conduct so that the sex offense will not appear in your record. That avoids a lot of mandatory conditions and penalties that would normally attach. Mr. Tu, have you ever been charged with this offense before?
No.
All right, sir.
Your Honor,
Yes.
may I maybe proceed to immediate sentencing?
Yes, that's what we're going to
Oh,
do.
I'm sorry, Your Honor, go ahead.
What did you think we were going to do?
Well, I was hoping we would.
All right, Mr. Tu, two things, sir. The court does want you to take an HIV test. And I know that there was no actual conduct on this occasion, but I want to make sure that you know whether or not you have been infected with a sexually transmitted disease. You do not have to tell the court what the results of that test are, but I am going to require that you take that test and show the court proof that you had the test. And we will give you 30 days to do that. In addition, Madam Clerk, do you have the fine for Mr. Tu?
Your Honor, it's 240, but we normally do 300 to 400 for this type of offense.
I'm going to allow the 240
Okay.
for this offense this time, Mr. Tu, since this is your first time, sir. But I will require that HIV test and proof of that. So I'm going to give you a return date in 30 days.
Your Honor,
Yes.
Your Honor, I already know that I am HIV positive. So
Hold on, Michael, wait a minute. Just wait. Don't say anything.
Okay.
Go ahead, Your Honor.
And I think your lawyer is telling you that because he knows that that's another problem. So, Mr. Two, how old are you, sir?
60.
Are you on medication?
Yes, I am.
I am still going to, Mr. To require some verification of that. Since you have made this admission in open court, you should not have a problem with that. But I just would like to see some verification of what you have just said. If not, then I want you to take that test. But if you already know what the results of that test will be, then are you under the treatment of a physician?
Yes, I am.
Okay, so just an acknowledgement of that physician that you are being treated. But this has some other ramifications if the prosecutor knew what you are now telling the court. It is extremely serious for you, Mr. Brown. I'm sure you already are aware of that. So you need to speak to Mr. Two about what this could mean for him. And you also, sir, need to speak to Mr. Two about perhaps getting some counseling, because if you are risking the health of others by engaging in this conduct, it may mean, Mr. Two, that you need to have some counseling before you have some irreversible consequences. There may be something else going on with you. I do know people can live well and long lives with treatment, but if you expose knowingly others to that disease, it does have criminal consequences. So, Mr. Brown, I need you to help Mr. Two with this. And if Mr. Two needs some counseling, if you want the court to assist with that, we can, but I think he should really find out what's going on. For my part, if you pay the fines that the court has assessed, $240, we've given you a reduction in what we would normally assess, and show the court just documentation that you are being treated by a physician. All right. I'm concerned about you.
Your Honor, this is the prosecutor, Stephen Morgan, on behalf of the city of Detroit. I'm in the courtroom as well.
Mr. Prosecutor?
And, during sentencing, there's a couple of things that should be addressed that were also on the plea offer, sentencing recommendations. One was for the defendant to get counseling, and normally they set that up through probation here. It's what they call a John's class or something of that nature. And also, I'm looking at the ticket, and the factual basis on the ticket is a little bit different than what was allocated before the court today. And this ticket describes that the defendant was actually receiving a sexual act at the time, and that there was an officer that observed it.
Okay, so that's not what Mr. Brown, you represented to the court, or Mr. Two. Mr. Two represented Mr. Brown confirmed that he was satisfied with what Mr. Two said. So that says to the court that you are corroborating what Mr. Two said as factual according to your knowledge as an officer of the court, Mr. Brown. Gentlemen,
my knowledge is that he was attempting to engage in a sexual act, and he was interrupted when the officer came upon him. That's the information I had from my client, and I had no other discovery other than that. and I made a discovery request, didn't receive a police report, so that's the only representation I had as an officer of the court was from Mr. Tu. Mr. Tu can verify that. Is that
Okay.
true, Mr. Tu? Is that true,
Yes,
Mr. Tu?
I was
No,
attempting,
listen to my question. What I just said, is that true?
what you just said, yes.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Prosecutor,
Yes, Your Honor.
based on what Mr. Tu has said to me, I don't know whether the typical John's class is something that would be helpful to him. Was this relationship, and the reason I'm saying that, do we know whether this was a male or female person that Mr. Tu was involved with?
Your Honor, I do not know, but the officer who issued the ticket states here on the facts here that it basically says the subject was observed receiving fellatio inside the public park.
Well, I don't know if that, I don't know, that probably wouldn't matter whether it was male or female, but it does matter in terms of knowingly having a disease and allowing someone to perform that kind of sex act. Because that is, now the Johns class would be helpful if you don't already know how AIDS is transmitted, Mr. Tu. It would be helpful for that reason, I'm thinking, because they do cover all the ways of transmission. So even when you're being treated, you can transfer the disease. So I was not advised, and as you know, I'm off-site, Mr. Morgan, so I did not have that information from the ticket, and no one advised me, nor from the offer, nor was I advised that there were conditions written into that offer. So I still want some documentation from your physician, but now the prosecutor is telling me that he also wanted that John's class, which is also known as the Misdemeanor Morality Program, which is just a one-day online class, but it will give you information about the class, the content of the class, of how this is transmitted. So we're going to require that as a condition as well, if that's what the prosecutor has recommended. And Mr. Prosecutor, between that testing or verification that he's already under a treatment program and the misdemeanor morality class, is there anything else that you are requiring? Yes.
What we normally recommend is also community service, and he would have to go and consult with probation for them to set him up with the community service. And I believe we normally would recommend 20 hours. And I think that they would set him up with community service appropriate to the circumstances. And if they can't, then it should come back to the court.
What I've seen, unfortunately, Mr. Morgan, is that they are not making those community service assignments because of the pandemic.
Understood.
And so I'm inclined to waive that. But I am concerned about what Mr. Tu knows and his behavior in response to what he knows. So I do want part of my record and my sentence to be the misdemeanor morality class, as well as documentation regarding the treatment he's receiving, as well as the reduced $240 fine. I want that to be on the record so that if this happens again, Mr. Tu, what I would think, sir, is that you really need some more intense intervention, because you are risking not only your life, but the lives of others when you indulge in this kind of behavior. So
Your Honor,
what
may
it says to
I,
me when something like that happens is that there's something that's not obvious that's going on. Do you think there is, Mr. Tu? And it might be stress. It might be related to the pandemic and what's going on. Either way, you need to address it. Are you employed, Mr. Tu?
Yes, I am.
What do you do, sir?
I'm a university administrator.
Mr. Tu, where? At Wayne State, sir?
No, Your Honor, at Eastern Michigan University.
Okay. I really, have you ever had counseling, Mr. Tu?
No, I have. I had some counseling some time ago, but it was minor. It was just a personal challenge that I had years and years ago.
And I don't want to presume that I have any expertise in that area. I don't. It's just intuitive and based on my knowledge of being in this job for over 20 years. It just intuitively lets me know that something may need to be addressed, particularly you, Mr. Tu, because of what you've told me about your employment situation and how intelligent and professional you come across to this court. You don't want to throw your life away or your professional career. And so I'm just going to acknowledge that. And when you come back, because I do want you to come back in 30 days with the documentation that we've discussed. And when you come back, if you want this court to give you a referral, if you think you need it, I think you can find your own referral. But if you want some help from the court, we would do that, because you're going into a direction that I think is going to lead you somewhere where you don't want to be. And if you can just get some assistance, either through your own physician or through a referral that the court would be happy to, investigate for you. Something's happening. Something's happening. Anyway, Mr. Morgan, did you have anything further? I'm going to give you return date, Madam Clerk. Can you please give me a date?
Yes, Your Honor, May 13th.
Pardon?
May 13th.
May 13, Mr. Tu, May 13, sir. And that will be at 9 a.m. And it's just a review date. I want to see that documentation. And you will need to have made your payment by then. Is it going to take longer than that for your payment? Oh, when you come back, if there's anything that I can assist you with, because right now I'm not talking about punishment. Right now I'm talking about help.
I appreciate that, Your Honor, very much.
And I appreciate your candor. That's another reason, Mr. Tu, you have been so candid and so forthright with the court. That also lets me know, sir, that there may be something going on. But if you want to, we'll talk further about it. But if not, I've alerted you enough to what I recognize. I'm sure you've recognized it yourself. And Mr. Brown?
Yes, Your Honor.
Thank you so much. Do you have any questions, sir?
Just one question, Your Honor. As far as the morality class, is there a way you can sign up for that?
Madam Clerk, the probation department will have to give him that information. Can you make that connection for Mr. Tu?
Yes, Mr. Tu, you have to dial this number for probation. Are you ready?
Hold on one second. Okay.
It's 313-965-3414. And they will give you the information regarding the misdemeanor morality class. Okay?
Okay.
And Your Honor, I need clarification. So he's not showing proof of his results, just proof of documentation from the doctor?
Yes, that he's being treated.
Okay,
He's in some treatment program, yes. And I think that's all we need.
Your Honor, is there a fax number or email where I could send that to the court?
You know, because of the nature of and the sensitivity of this, I wouldn't want it to be floating around in the court email or in any file. If you could just bring it that day and we'll have the prosecutor view it, we can screen share it or whatever, because I don't want it loose and, you know,
Very good, very well.
I mean, you understand what
I do.
okay. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Judge.
You may disconnect.